Hey guys, welcome back to another impressions video. Here to talk about Yakuza 0, which is another entry in one of my favorite series that I've learned to love. One of the, I guess, newer series of games that I really enjoy, which are the Yakuza games. And I was very excited, to play this game, and very thankful to Sega and I guess Sony, because I think they had some part in bringing this game to the West. But as you guys know, there were many struggles for the series to become popular. Yakuza 3 and 4, they sold, I guess, not well enough for Yakuza 5 to be fully brought to the West, and then I think Sony ended up publishing and translating the game, which was something pretty cool, although unfortunately it was only like a digital-only PlayStation 3 release, but that may change in the future. So Yakuza 0 was a very important game for the PlayStation 4 because I think this game actually did very well in terms of sales, and I was very happy and impressed as to just the overall reviews and good impressions that the game got, even from like big YouTubers that don't necessarily play these types of games. Like for example, Angry Joe, he made a Yakuza 0 review video, and it's through people like that the game got expanded through word of mouth, and I think a lot of people actually ended up enjoying this game, and the game did pretty well sales wise, which is very important for the series. And of course now we have this, I guess, invasion or a lot of releases, like remakes, like Yakuza Kiwami 1 and I think 2, it's about to get officially announced, and then Yakuza 6 will come to the West. So as far as Yakuza fans, this is a good time to rejoice and just enjoy all the games we're getting. And I'm really glad this series took off with this particular game, because this is obviously a very good place to start. Yakuza 0 is obviously the earliest game in the series. It takes place in 1988, a time where I think Japan was going through a pretty good economic time. There was a lot of money, and the economy was doing pretty well. And I was under the impression that the game was going to take in 1985, because Yakuza 4 had some flashbacks to a certain event that happened in I think 1985 or 6 in the Yakuza universe, and I was almost guaranteed, or I was almost certain that the game was going to take place around that event. But that particular event also makes I guess an appearance or cameo appearance as far as the storytelling in this game. But this is a brand new story that stars obviously Kazuma Kiryu, which is the main, I guess, protagonist of all the Yakuza games, and Goro Majima, which is another very popular character in the series. And it's a very interesting take on these two characters that I don't want to say their stories intertwined. They're just very towards the end they kind of run into each other, but for the most part these are two separate stories, but that they deal with two similar things that happen in this game. And the story is actually very interesting because in my opinion, two things are really interesting about the story: just the characters and also the progression of the story. This probably has the best story progression out of any Yakuza games that I played. And in the games that I played, sometimes the stories are way too intricate and complicated. Sometimes they drag on for too long. They introduce too many characters. They range from being serious to like not taking themselves seriously. So Yakuza 0 does a very good job of keeping you entertained and keeping you on the edge of your seat. And it was the very first Yakuza game that I was playing that I really wanted to know what happens next. I can't say the same thing for games like, for example, Yakuza 3 or Yakuza 5, where I hit certain points in the story where I just felt like taking a break from the game, because these are long games. But with Yakuza 0, I just kept wanting to play the game just to see what was going to happen next in the story. So in my opinion, this has the best story and story progression out of any Yakuza game that I played, which is, I played all of them except 1, 2, and 6 basically. And I'm in the progress of playing Yakuza 1 Kiwami right now, so that's that. And then the way the gameplay works, this is a kind of like a beat 'em up action type of game with light RPG elements. It's very hard to describe because there's nothing really quite like this out there. There are some similarities with the Shenmue games. I guess some people like to compare these to like the GTA games, but it's not really, it's not comparable at all, because the Yakuza games are not a true open world game. In fact, the places that you can go are very limited. And of course, here in this game, yeah, you're back to Kamurocho, which is kind of like the everlasting, place, or it's kind of like the Hyrule of the Yakuza series. The game always takes place there, and it's always fun because Kamurocho is always the same. You're gonna see familiar buildings that have been there, like the Sega Square or whatever it's called. It's always there. But it's fun because this time the game takes in 1988, so you see certain things that were not there before, and certain locations or restaurants are in different places and whatnot. So very interesting to go back in time and explore Kamurocho on the late 1980s. And that's where Kazuma Kiryu's story takes place, and then you have Goro Majima. His story plays in Sotenbori. If you guys have played Yakuza 5, you're probably familiar with that particular area of the Yakuza universe. So reused assets, obviously, in terms of the places and the locations, but with subtle differences that make the game just overall really fun to play. Now, another winning part in this particular Yakuza 0 game is the gameplay department, where I think they made vast improvements in terms of gameplays. Basically, each character, either Goro or Kiryu, they have 4 different fighting styles, 3 available pretty early on in the game, and then the 4th one is kind of like a secret one that you have to unlock through side stories. But the 3 main fighting styles are like you have your normal fighting style, then you have your quick fighting style, and then you have your slow fighting style, where your punches, they deal a lot of damage, but it's a very type of slow movement. And then you have your quick, for example, where your character moves really quick. It's easy to evade attacks from the AI. But whenever you do punches, you can do like long combos, but they don't deal a whole lot of damage. And of course, your normal fighting style is kind of like the balanced one. So it adds a layer of strategy, especially when fighting bosses in this game, which the boss battles in the Yakuza games are always something else. In my opinion, they're really like the AI is always cheesing on you with different moves and just different types of I guess cheesing mechanics that are really annoying, but it's part of the charm of these games, if you will. So I thought it was really cool having 3 different fighting styles, and within each fighting style you can unlock new moves or abilities, as they call it in the game, by spending money. And the money in this game is something that it's really interesting, because in this Yakuza game you can become a millionaire really easily. And I guess the way the game works is because Japan was going through like a good economic time back in the late 80s, so the game kind of wants to I guess showcase that. So whenever you defeat a bunch of enemies randomly throughout town, you're gonna get a lot of money. I'm talking about, at the very least, you're gonna get like 200,000 yen or 300,000 yen. At certain parts of the game, you can get up to 1 million. If you defeat certain boss battles in the games, you can get more than 1 million. And if you beat like this very special like huge enemies that are circling around town, you can get up to like 90 million yen sometimes. It's absolutely crazy. It's really easy to get money in the game, but at the same time, when you upgrade your abilities, the best ones are locked behind a very high price point. Like some of the abilities are worth like 100 million yen, and there's a bunch of them in each fighting style. So you have to find ways to obviously always earn money, whether it's through side missions, fights, or side stories that give you some sort of income. So I thought it was a very fun part of the game. The fact that it's really easy to make money. I had fun just going to a restaurant like randomly in between missions and eating something to replenish my health. In other Yakuza games, it's almost like you're always kind of like trying to protect your money to buy healing items at the pharmacy, or to buy food at a restaurant, but you kind of wait until your health depletes a lot. In Yakuza 0, I was like, I don't care. If my health was down just a little bit, I would stop by at a restaurant and order something, or stop by a bar and grab myself a beer or something like that. It was just a very fun way that the game is set up in terms of the money that you earn in the game. Now, as far as the story, again, it's very interesting because the game really focuses on this particular empty lot, which is just a vacant piece of land that it's in the middle of Kamurocho, and the Yakuza and different real estate agencies, they're all fighting for this little spot that is very important because it will complete the kind of like the renovation plan for the Kamurocho area. So even though the piece of land is very small and kind of like a crappy hole in the middle of the city, it's very important because that will allow to build, you know, a brand new building in that site and complete the renovation. So it's worth billions and billions in terms of just importance alone. So you have all these different Yakuza factions that are fighting for it. You know, you have Yakuza families that are betraying each other. So your typical Yakuza storylines with a lot of plots and twists and turns and different characters that show up and different character developments. But I really enjoyed the game because it, you know, to summarize the story, it's the struggle to get this very small piece of land, very crappy piece of land that it's in the middle of Kamurocho. And of course, a couple of negative things that I thought I found in the game. Even though the game takes place in the late 80s, I didn't really get a full 80s vibe from the game. I know, like, certain, for example, the cars that are in the game, you know, they're modeled after, you know, late 80s cars in Japan, for example. The clothing, it's I guess it resembles that era, but there was something off that I think the game needed a little bit more 80s injected to the game. For some reason, I didn't feel fully immersed as far as the 80s vibe of the game, and that kind of disappointed me. It's hard to explain. I think it's just something personal that I stumble upon in this particular game, but nevertheless, I had a lot of fun, you know, playing the game. So that was a very small negative thing. And the other small negative thing was Kazuma Kiryu, you know, the main protagonist. He is supposed to be a very young, coming to be a Yakuza member, and you know, to me he sounded and acted the same way as Kiryu acts in every Yakuza game. He was very confident, very "I'm gonna kick your ass" type of attitude, and I would have liked to see him as far as just a little bit more, I guess, naive and a little bit more, you know, up and coming type of Yakuza guy. Like, this game presents him like as he is like already like the master of the Tokyo Yakuza scene, you know, as far as being a badass and just getting fights with just about anybody. And I thought that was a little bit, I was hoping he would be like a little bit more young, a little bit more I guess lost in this Yakuza world, but that's another very minor complaint that I personally have with the game. But I'm really glad, like I mentioned, you know, the graphics. This game has better graphics than the previous Yakuza game. Obviously, this is a build from the ground up for the PlayStation 4, and you know, the graphics have improved, not a whole lot. But I think the best way to appreciate this game is through the cinematic sequences, where, you know, they have excellent character models and just you know, very interesting movies in this game. Which, as you all know, you're gonna spend a lot of time watching the cinematic sequences in the Yakuza games, and this game is no different. Some of the cutscenes can last up until 15-20 minutes. You guys are going to be there watching the cutscenes. It's a staple of the series, and this game is no different to that. And another obviously staple of the series is the stuff that you have to do extra, like the side missions. This game in particular has like two very, I guess, dedicated side things that you can do. Namely, if you're playing with Kiryu, you can run a real estate agency, and Goro Majima, he has a like a cabaret club that you can run, and they're both really fun and very time consuming. So I highly recommend that you guys try those activities out, because for once they're a very easy way to make money in the game and buy better abilities for your characters. In the Kazuma, in Kiryu's real estate game, I think I was able to dominate like 2 areas of the city. There's a total of 5. And basically what you have to do is you just have to keep buying property and manage, the different managers and security that you can assign to different areas. It's almost like a different type of game. So that's something that I really appreciate, because it kind of like deviates a little bit from the regular beat 'em up action of the Yakuza games. And as far as Majima's side mission, the Cabaret Club, I had a ton of fun doing that. I actually conquered like 3 different cabaret clubs. I think there's a total of 5. Very time consuming. You have to recruit hostesses. You have to train them. You can change their makeup. They have different stats. For example, it's almost like a small mini RPG in a certain sense. You have to micromanage the different clientele that walks into the cabaret club. Everything is time based. I absolutely love the Cabaret Club mini game, from the Majima storyline, if you will. And I just had a ton of fun. Like there's so many layers of depth within that mini game that it's something that I really appreciate the game doing. And then of course you have your regular mini games. Like you can go to the karaoke bar, you can go to like the disco and dance. You have this a dating telephone line type of side mission as well. And then you have your regular side missions like helping civilians do stuff and things like that always get you more money, always get you more like rare items and whatnot. So this game is just designed for you to be consumed as far as time is concerned. Now, if you guys aim for the main story, I think you can finish this game between 20 to 30 hours. My final playtime was like 48 hours. I'm estimating it probably took me, I don't know, like 25 hours or 30 hours to beat the main story. And then almost like 20 hours was just side missions. I did a ton of them. I know for a fact I completed more than 40 of them because there's a trophy that popped up for completing 40 side missions. And then I got invested in the real estate Kiryu game, and I got really invested in the Cabaret Club. So that's around 20 hours I'm estimating of just side content that I spent doing in this game, and I just had a ton of fun. And in fact, I'm ready to go back. I'm not gonna lie, guys, but I do want to play Kiwami, Yakuza Kiwami, just to experience the first game and kind of follow up on the storyline. Now, the bad news for you guys, I know there's a lot of you that have started with Yakuza 0, which is great. A lot of people are new to the series, but it's going to be very tough. Just a heads up, it's going to be very tough for you guys to go back to games like 3, 4, and 5 specifically, because those games have, compared to this, outdated graphics and outdated gameplay mechanics that may hurt or hinder your experience. So here's hoping that Sega maybe considers remaking those games. I know 1 and 2 are getting remade, which is fantastic because those games are really outdated, being PlayStation 2 titles. So I'm very thankful to Sega for remaking 1 and 2, and I'm ready to play both of them. And like I said, I already started Yakuza 1, and then I'm obviously looking forward to Yakuza 6, which is a game that it didn't get too well received in Japan, but nevertheless, I'm looking forward to trying that game out. Now, where does Yakuza 0 stand in as far as all the games that I played so far? It's very tough. I'm going to have to think hard and through, but I do think that this is one of the most refined games. By far, it has the better story in general, the best story progression, in my opinion. Very well polished gameplay mechanics, and just an overall fun side games and side quests that are always fun. And the way the game is structured, that's another thing that I wanted to bring out very quick. You typically play 2 chapters starring Kazuma Kiryu, 2 chapters for Majima, then 2 for Kiryu, and so forth. So the game has like a nice break in between not only the characters, not only the gameplay style, but also the story, the storylines, because each character has their own storyline developing for each character, and it's kind of fun whenever something important is about to happen in one storyline, then you switch to the other one. So you kind of want to go back and or finish the other storyline first, so you can keep progressing in the story. So very well structured game. I really enjoyed my time with Yakuza 0. As somebody that has played most of the games in the series, I can honestly say this is a very good place to start if you guys own a PlayStation 4. Do consider getting this game. I do think it's not for everybody. You're going to be spending a lot of time watching cutscenes. You're going to be spending a lot of time looking at very quirky Japanese, I guess, humor and just overall weird stuff. But that's the charm of the Yakuza games, and I highly recommend that you guys try this game at one point or another. So with that being said, this is a fantastic game. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this impressions video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all later.